Kip's Corner, welcome back. And if you're new, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Okay, I'm going to play today. I have no idea what the outcome's going to be, but I found a huge lot of these round metal buttons, like several hundred of them. And so what I thought I'd do today is see what I can do with them and play with them. Because the silver is nice and I can see it being used somewhere, I thought it might be fun to just play with a bunch of different mediums and just kind of see what we come up with and see what works really well on something like this other than paper or fabric. So I'm going to start, how am I going to start? I don't know. I think I'm going to start with some alcohol ink. That's pretty. It's got a neat sheen to it. Okay, I'm gonna set that aside and let that dry. All right, next, so that's alcohol ink. Next I wanna play with getting some embossing powders. I think I wanna start with maybe some chunky rust. This is from Seth Apter, it's baked texture, it's called Chunky Rust. So an embossing ink pad. So I'm going to clip this again, and I'm just going to, my embossing ink pad is in sad shape. I like that. It's got a nice, let's see if you can see it close up. It's got a nice, very rustic look to it. Okay, so let's set that aside. We'll let that cool off. I love Ancient Amber. This is also a Seth Apter baked texture. One of my favorites. So I'm going to try Ancient Amber. The Seth Apter baked textures come in an envelope. And just for ease and storage, I have mine in these containers. It's because it really has more to do with the size of the container than anything. I'm going to try to get some on the sides here. That's really pretty. And I'm going to do that again. But you can see I think, there you go. You see the texture. Really pretty. So I'm going to dab that again and do a second coat. Just going to let that drip. Move it around. Oh. I really should have a system for holding this that works a little bit better. I like that one. It's got there we go. Whoops. Oh my goodness. Let's see if I can touch it. Yeah. It's got a neat, that is warm. It's got a neat texture to it. Okay. Let's let that sit aside and cool off, and I'll bring it back up in a minute. Okay, now what I want to try is some embossing glaze. Some of the Tim Holtz glazes. All right, I've got, let's see, let's do this is pretty. Peeled paint, and how's about whatever color this is? Walnut stain. Okay. One of them I'm going to use, this is Wow Mixed Media Embossing Brush. This is great for when you want a really kind of thick, chunky embossed surface. I'll use this a lot of times when I'm playing with vintage beeswax, because it gives it that thick beeswax looking texture. It's pretty. All right, so we've done a couple of different baked textures. Embossing glazes. We did some alcohol ink. Now let's start looking at different kinds of textures. So how about just regular paint, right? So I'm going to start with a layer of gesso on this. I can get that to stay. Let's do, actually, you know what? I'm going to do black gesso. And then I'm going to put some wax on it. So let's go black gesso. On one of them I'm going to do the foundry wax, and on the other one I'm going to do just the metal ink. This is a really old metal ink wax, but it's still good. It's old silver. And so I'm just going to grab hold. I'm going to concentrate on the outside edge first. Oh, funny. Why did I use silver? Because the button started silver. I may put another color on here too. I really like the way that brings up the texture that was on the button to begin with. And then the texture that I created with the brush strokes from the adding the gesso on. It gives it a neat, very different texture. But let's take that one step further, since I started with silver and I grabbed silver. This is Gilder's. The other one was Finnabar Premium Marketing. So if I can get this open. There we go. It's hard for me to grab hold of the sides because they're not very big. All right, now I'm going to put, ooh, I see. That's kind of cool. Next, on this one, we're going to put the foundry wax. Next up, let's try some texture paste. I think what I'll do is start with the crackle paint and put a little bit of crackle paint in here. Let's see if I can find a brush that's and let's see if we can get this to cooperate. There we go. And I'm just going to dab some crackle paint on here. And there was a little bit of paint on my brush, which is great. I'm going to try another one with, or not another one, but one with crackle paint. Now this one is, I have two brands of crackle paint here. I have Finnabar crackle paint, and I have Deco Art Media crackle paint. So I'm going to use this one. Okay, I grabbed two stamps. I was looking mostly for round ones. Let me clear some. Let's use a StazOn. This is olive green. So I think this would be a fun one. So I'm just gonna stamp that. And get my and I'm gonna just turn this around, try to drop that on there about in the right spot, and push down. And I moved it, so it's probably gonna be blurry. That's okay. That's okay. And voila. Not quite lined up, a little off center, but not horrible. Let me wipe. Bird. We're gonna do a bird. Okay. So I'm gonna put him on here like this. And on this one, I am going to use black archival ink. No, let's not use black. That's too easy. Let's do sepia. This is archival ink from Ranger. And I'm focusing my attention on the bird. Oh, this is an older pad, so I want to make sure I get it good. And there we go. And I want to pretty much try to get the bird's head. So let's try that. Ooh, see? That's what I should have been doing instead of trying to center something. That looks great. Love it. Love it. Okay, so that one's white gesso with sepia ink on top, stamped. This one's black gesso with white, picket fence stamped. And this one is cream gesso with a green ink stamped on it. Stays on pad here that's actually pretty old. So I don't know, it might be a little dried out, but I'm gonna use my brush. I'm gonna kind of brush the whole thing, focusing on that outer edge. And this color is it's a very dark brown. Almost a black, but not quite. Let's see, what's the best way to hold this? Okay, now let me put some black around the edges. Trying to find my brush here. Here we go. Yep, that's black. Let's put some black around the edges. There we go. Oh, I like the way that turned out. Nice. This was our crackle paint, and it's not dry yet, but it is, see if you can see that. It's nicely, there you go. There you go. It's nicely cracking. High flow acrylic from Golden in raw umber. You can tell it's well used. And I want a nice liquidy raw umber. Let's see. Let's just use this. I don't think I need to add any. Yeah. Get down in those cracks. Get that. Now, I did not put any kind of base on this. I probably should have, because I'm not sure if the crackle paste will actually stick, honestly, but that's all right. Yeah, some of it is coming off. And now I'm going to kind of dab it off. There we go. Ooh, I like that. And I want some of it, I actually do want some of it to come off, let's be honest. So I'm going to brush that. Okay, let's let that dry. I only have a 1 inch, 2 inch, and 2.5 inch circle punch. Oh, that'll work. That'll absolutely work. All right, let's glue this on. I'm gonna go ahead and glue this on with art glitter glue. Now what I could do, let's get my raw umber back out again. Let's see, where is it? Okay, this is the vintage gold. All right. Ooh, see how it's grabbing that texture? And I'm very lightly going over it. There we go. So now it kind of looks like a fabric button, right? It's just a circle of paper glued on there. Okay, let's see what we ended up with. All right, a couple of them that didn't really work very well. Some that I like a lot, some that are just, okay. So this one was Seth Apter's Baked Texture in Rocky Road. So it has that asphalty sort of look to it. Nice and crunchy, you can see. Lots of texture, wonderful embossing. Baked texture is what it's called. And so that one was just the texture straight on top of the button. This one was Seth's Ancient Amber. And again, we got that nice texture. And then I went around the edge with just black archival ink. Kind of came in a little bit. And so that is, sorry, I've got ink all over my fingers. That is Seth Apter's Baked Texture Ancient Amber. Okay, then we tried Embossing Glaze from Tim Holtz. This is one of the greens. I forget which one. Really pretty color. It's got a nice sheen to it. A little bland, depending on, what you're going to use it for. I think if I would do a little more to this. And then I had another one where I was working with walnut stain, and I used the liquid embossing brush, which gives a much thicker, and it didn't work as well. I mean, that's kind of cool depending on what you're doing, but it didn't work as well. Another couple coats or another couple layers of embossing powder might work better. Okay, then, I don't know then what order these are in. I think I actually started with the alcohol ink. So that's just alcohol ink, just straight on top with no prep on the surface or anything. And same thing, it's fun depending on what you're doing. Gives it a neat look. Let's see, that one. This one is Tim Holtz Foundry Wax, and I kind of just smudged it on there so I got that texture, and then I went in and just put some ink, a stamp on top. So it's okay. I think I would have liked this better if this were more of a smooth surface instead of the way I put it on, but it worked. This is a 1-inch stamp punched out on top of one that wasn't working as well. I think it was a mixture of alcohol ink and gesso, and it wasn't working, so I just covered it up with a little fox. That's really cute. And so it's got this rough edge, aged edge, which actually ended up working really well for the fox. Then this is just white gesso. I think this is actually cream colored gesso, straight on top of the button, stamped with a green archival ink. And then I just went around the edge with a little bit of black. I didn't get that one stamped in the center, but depending on how you're using it, that's okay. The stamped worked really, really well when I used a stamp that was bigger than the button. And so that's what this guy is. And that's white gesso in the background with a sepia archival ink stamp, and then that same sepia ink brushed around the edges. I really like the way that one turned out. So I liked this one so well that I did another one the exact same way, except I did two things different. I used a cream gesso on the base, and then I used vintage beeswax embossing powder from Seth Apter on top, and it gives it that yellow, that antique look. And that one's really cute, and it's got the shine now too. So I like both of those. Oh, let's see. This one was Deco Art Media Crackle Paint on top of the button, and then I let that dry really well, and then I used there, good, that's getting a good picture. And then I used raw umber in a high flow acrylic from Golden to get down into those cracks. And then I went over the top of that with a little tiny bit of Gilder's waxed paste in Rust. You can kind of see that through here and a little bit more up here. And then I went back over it with just a tiny bit here on the edges and over here with Gilder's Wax Paste in Patina. So I got a really nice grungy button out of that one. I like that one a lot too. Okay, back to the embossing powder. Here I used Seth Apter's Chunky Rust, and I did 2 layers. And the second layer sort of, I don't know, you can kind of see some of the discoloration. So then I went on and I added just a tiny bit of rusting powder. This is from Paper Artsy. And you sprinkle it, you can pre-mix it too, and then you sprinkle it with vinegar and it will just let it dry and then it'll rust. And then I had a bunch on here, so then I went in and rubbed some off just to kind of get this. So that's my rust kind of through here and down here a little, here. And then I went back over the whole thing with Seth Apter's Vintage Beeswax. And it's got another nice grungy look to it. This one, let's see, did I do anything to the edge on this one first? I did, but I don't remember what. Oh no, I didn't. So this, I just took the flat button and I used that same 1-inch circle punch, and I punched a circle out of a handmade paper. And the back side of that handmade paper has the screen imprint on it. So after that dried really well, first then I colored the whole thing with raw umber. So I got that dark brown paper because I was using a pale off-white paper. And then I let that dry, and then I went over the whole thing, including the edges, with a vintage gold Metallique wax from Finnabar. And it gave it that texture. Looks a little bit like a piece of fabric sitting on there. Really cute. I like the way that one turned out too. Back to the alcohol ink, playing with alcohol ink. This is just one color here, and then I stamped the top of it. I think you can, there you go. You can kind of, there you go. You can see the little flowers there on the stamp. That one's okay. I mean, I like it. It's cute. It has a place. This one I started with the base of black gesso, and then I went over it with silver Metallique wax, and then I went over that with some patina Gilder's Wax Paste, and it kind of gave this nice, you can see the brush strokes, and I really actually like that. It gave it this nice aged, worn look button. So I like the way that one turned out too. A couple that didn't work as well. I started with Crackle Paint from Tim Holtz on this one, and I didn't get enough coverage. You can kind of see, and then I went over it with some liquid acrylic and a blue. I mean, it's got a neat texture. It's nice. It would be a good base for something, or you know, a centerpiece, but it just didn't work. This is the other one that didn't work. This is Frosted Crystal, and I didn't get, you can kind of see, I went straight onto the metal, and you can see there's like skips and gaps. So I think what I would do here, I think this could work, and it's a pretty texture. There you go. See, that's a really pretty texture. It just needs a little more TLC, more work. Might start with a base of gesso first and then try that. What I didn't do on any of these is use acrylic paint, you know, just a heavy bodied acrylic paint on the base. That would probably work too. So not that it didn't work, I just didn't give it the attention that it needed. So I have 3 that I'm not really happy with, 3.5, you know, but the rest of these, I really, really, really like the way they turned out for very different reasons. And there we go. Next up, when I'm working in my butterfly book, I'm going to be taking this button and I'll create a cluster with it and show you what I do and how I play with it. These have a, they've got a pretty good bump on the back here where you would sew them on. That may or may not be problematic depending on how it's being used, but you also might be able to pop this whole thing off to where that's not in your way. So yeah, so lots of different uses, lots of different ways to use these. So if you, like me, ever encounter an estate sale where there's a huge bag of hundreds of these buttons, grab them up. Or if you have any, go through your stash, see if you have any flat metal buttons in there, and start playing. It's a lot of fun. And thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back.